All right, so why is a solar flare like a cyber attack? In fact, so similar, somehow we can't tell the difference anymore, right? Is a solar flare, is a CME, is a cyber attack? You think we should know, right? The information is certainly out there, tracking the activity from the sun, whether it's a solar flare, which is an electromagnetic radiation that travels at the speed of light, or a coronal mass ejection, which is highly magnetized plasma coming at the Earth much slower. It doesn't come at the speed of light. It's 1900 miles per second and can reach the Earth in about 15 to 18 hours or as long as several days, right? You think we would know, right? Did we get hit by a solar flare? Did we get hit by a CME? Are we getting hit by a cyber attack? Or was everything just sort of happening at the same time, right? There was a recent outage, major telecom provider, cellular provider went down. Then some people started getting really excited. I'm not going to say everyone panicked, but a lot of people were trying to figure out what's going on, right? Was it a cyber attack? Was it a solar flare? Was there a conspiracy to hide a cyber attack and call it a solar flare? Well, we pretty sure we know that there were solar flares at that time, unless, once again, conspiracy, they lied about the solar flares to cover up for a cyber attack. I don't know on that. I'm not going to dig into that too much. I do want to talk about what is a solar flare, what is a CME, what is a cyber attack, right? So we talk about solar flares, we talk about coronal mass ejection. Solar flares are much faster. Coronal mass ejections are much slower, so theoretically we would have warning, hey, a CME's coming in, and they do, right? Historically, as I mentioned, there was the Carrington event, 1859, caused worldwide telegraph system failures, so there's that concern. If in 1859, a Carrington event, a large CME, came in, wiped out the telegraph system, what if we got hit by one now? We're certainly more dependent on electricity than we were in 1859, right? And that is a possibility. So in 1989, there was a CME accompanied by a solar flare that hit Earth, plunging the entire province of Quebec, Canada, into an electrical blackout that lasted 12 hours. So they were able to recover in 1989 when the CME hit Quebec. So that's the concern, right? You have a large blast of electricity coming in that has the potential to overload our grid, overload electrical systems, similar to what you would expect from EMP, potentially EMP, electromagnetic pulse. Once again, it's a large blast of electronic energy. EMPs, and we've done videos on those. That's not this video. Would likely shut down, right? Destroy, damage a good percentage, if not all, of the electronics that make up modern civilization. There is the possibility, concern, that a large CME could do the same thing. So smaller CMEs, solar flares happen all the time. As I said, the sun's on an 11-year cycle. We're going into the peak of that cycle at 2025, so expect to hear about more solar flares, more CMEs. It's energy released from the sun, hits the Earth. If you happen to be an astronaut, just to give you a sense for what a CME actually is, how intense they are, if you're an astronaut outside, unprepared astronaut out wandering around outside of the space station or spaceship, a CME would be equivalent to 300,000 simultaneous chest x-rays. So a lot of radiation, a lot of energy there. Before it hits the Earth, the CME could be reach size comprising nearly a quarter of the space between Earth and the Sun by the time it reaches the planet, which is huge. Think about how far away the Sun is. You're talking about a storm that equals a quarter of that distance. So they do happen. If you like watching the aurora borealis, lights in the sky, smaller ones create those, right? And I think I mentioned the CMEs and solar flares can happen at the same time. So when you hear about a Class X solar flare, it's possible that CME could be going. Not every solar flare, not every CME is going to have that EMP effect, is going to wipe out all of our electronics. They said they do happen frequently, but that is a possibility. When you hear solar flares, that's more likely to affect things like radio communication, affect the ionosphere. Where the CME, if it hit the Earth, is possibly going to have more surface level impacts, right? It is something to be aware of, the possibility. So why would a cyber attack look like a solar flare? Why is it like a solar flare? Well, it's disruptions, right? It's about creating disruptions. We know disruptions happen. It's not entirely obvious at the time. Why did the disruptions happen, right? And that's, I guess, the fodder for the conspiracy theory is, what did we get hit by? Maybe people feel like the media, the government right now would hide the fact that it was a cyber attack if it is one. I don't know. I don't want to get into that too much, but let's talk about cyber attacks. I have some experience with cybersecurity. Cyber attacks happen all the time, and maybe people don't realize that. Hackers, whether it's organized crime, mafia type hackers, or government level hackers, government state-sized hackers, and maybe even still kids in the basement, right? People are hacking or trying to hack into systems constantly, so it should be no surprise to anyone if a system gets hacked, right? They're happening all the time. Obviously, there's the other side of hacking, which is cybersecurity. There's a lot of people doing everything they can every day, night and day, to make sure systems are secure. But on the hacker side, it's all the time. So if you hear about a big cyber attack, shouldn't be a surprise, which to me is why I was a little confused when people were thinking, the media, the government's hiding that we got hit by a cyber attack, blaming it on a solar flare, and maybe they both happened at the same time. I don't know, right? But when we talk about cyber attacks, few different types, and we've talked about cyber attacks before. You have the attacks of people trying to make money, right? They're not necessarily trying to create maximum destruction, do maximum damage. They're trying to maximize profits, and they do that through things like identity theft, ransomware. There's a whole industry, evil industry, on the hacker side of people doing the social engineering, trying to get information about you, to guess your passwords, to get into your systems, to steal your identity, to get into your bank account, steal your money. That's one side of it. There's the ransomware that maybe you've heard about, where a malicious program gets installed on your computer. And what it does, the way ransomware works, is it starts encrypting files in the background. So all of a sudden, all your pictures and movies and all your important files are encrypted. You can't access them anymore. So the ransomware pops up and says, hey, you need to pay us money, probably Bitcoin, and we'll unlock your system, right? And those kind of attacks do happen. They'll happen to businesses. Can be super destructive if it happens to a business. Ransomware gets in, starts basically locking, encrypting a bunch of the files on their servers throughout their network potentially, and then the ransomware pops up and says, hey, if you want your financial records back, if you want to be able to run your business, you have to pay us money. And it could be thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on a ransomware attack. So that side of hacking, of cybersecurity, that happens all the time. That's happening every day. As I said, there's entire groups that have built up that are trying to hack into systems to make money. There's the other side of hacking and cyber war, which is disruption, right? It's places like Russia, China, even America. We all have cyber war, government, military cyber war centers that are looking for the ability to create disruption, whether it's communication disruptions, whether it's power outage disruptions. That's their whole purpose, right? They're not trying to do ransomware. They're not trying to steal your identity. It's the government level. It's the militarized, weaponized cyber weapons, and they are trying to create disruptions. We saw something recently that Iran had used a cyber attack on Israel to create a power outage. So those are increasing, and I think everyone's saying that. I'm not the only one saying that. We only expect them to increase more. Part of that is as AI grows, and AI is growing very quickly, becoming very powerful, the tools that hackers use are also going to become more powerful. They'll have AI-based tools for hacking, make it easier to get through passwords, make it easier to get in systems, make sophisticated attacks a little bit easier to execute. So we're seeing more of that now. There's quantum as well that's sneaking up. You hear about quantum encryption, quantum computers. If quantum computers get to the point that they can start decrypting passwords, that also creates major disruption. So there's only so much you can do as an individual. You can do your own kind of self-help cybersecurity best practices. Don't open attachments in emails. Don't do funny links. Don't go to funny websites. Don't click on funny stuff. Right, you just need to be aware of anything coming in. Verify it all. If you get an email saying it's from somebody, call them. I know someone that said they had this long multi-week conversation with a friend over email who ultimately asked for money. He eventually called the person had no idea. So that's some sense of the level of sophistication of the side of hackers that are trying to make money. Social engineering, impersonation. There can be individually targeted attacks. There can be wide-scale targeted attacks. But the level of sophistication is increasing, especially you bring in AI, text generation, generative AI. The ability to mimic voices is now a thing. So you could get a call from somebody potentially. It's not that person, right? Even to be able to spoof your phone into thinking it's someone that's calling that isn't. So the phone call identification, it's possible to spoof that. So there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of cyber attacks going on. So you shouldn't be surprised, right? There is that risk. Cyber war is a thing. If you look at Russia's military doctrine right now, they have a cyber war division, and now they actually include weapons like EMP weapons as part of cyber war, part creating disruption more than nuclear weapons. We certainly hope something like that would never be used, but we have seen it. We have seen it continuing to develop, continuing to be used. So where I'm trying to go with that is whether it's cyber war that creates a disruption, whether it's a CME, solar flare that creates a disruption, whether it's a total grid down, whether it's your cell phone doesn't work, or maybe your favorite radio station, if you still listen to radio stations, isn't available. My message is don't be surprised, right? There's no reason to hide cyber attacks. For people, they happen all the time. Solar flares happen all the time. CMEs happen all the time. It's the size. It's all about the size, right? Obviously, major cyber attacks that hit grid down do not happen all the time. Neither do CMEs. We've got them tracked in history, 1800s, 1900s. But they're always possible at any time. We know there would be warning with CME. How much that would be communicated, what that would be like, I don't know. The big ones don't happen very often, but it is something to be prepared for. You have to go into 2024 prepared for disruptions to your regular life. You know, we do homesteading. The pigs were all over me when I was trying to film this video. They're eating some grass right now, but think about things like self-sufficiency. Think about things like breaking your dependency from the grid, from modern civilization as much as you can, whether that's a little bit of extra food, you've got a little bit of extra water, you have a garden, whatever you can do. Think about self-sufficiency. 2024 should be your year to really focus on being independent, being more self-sufficient, more self-reliant, building up those skills. And just being prepared. There's a lot of things that can happen, right? As I mentioned, just a few with CMEs, solar flares. We're going into the 2025 solar maximum cycle. Cyber attacks more sophisticated, going to happen more frequently with bigger impact. And of course, it's an election year, so we expect more disruption, not to count all the wars and everything else going on right now. So hope that helps out. Just want to dig into it. Try to share some information, help people get prepared. So as always, thank you for watching, and we appreciate you.